Hi, Stephen. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I'm an author of two books, Family of Killers, Memoirs of Assassin, and Lies Lead to Death. They're both they're both about organized crime from families in Ireland that moved to Canada to hide. Um, yeah, so they're both available right now, and I'm kind of excited to talk to you about this travels to the moon.
Well, I guess before we hop into that, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. Can you talk about what got you into writing and this particular topic?
Sure. So I used to do karate fighting, training and stuff like that. And one day I was training and I stepped into a kick and I got probably the worst concussion of my life. Was the worst concussion of my life. Wasn't the first one, but and it put me down. And so obviously after dealing with that and my doctor saying, well, you're not a millionaire from fighting, so you might want to take a step back. I I stopped that, but in the recovery process of dealing with a concussion, which is a serious thing, and I've been lucky to get through it. I know other people that have really struggled through it and stuff, but I've been lucky enough to get through it without too many issues. But the one thing it did do was I used to do a lot of writing and stuff in high school and college, and then obviously with the family and stuff, you have to kind of put that on the back burner. But with this concussion, this character started growing in my mind, started, you could almost say, talking to me. I started like waking up with thoughts about it and stuff. So I started jotting it down, started writing a story about it. Next thing you know, I'm looking at it and I've got chapters to a book. So I started to really focus on it, developed it, and that was my first book, Family of Killers, Memoirs of an Assassin. So like I said, that character, it takes him from when he was in Northern Ireland and his father was identified by an IRA member while he was out trying to do a hit, and the whole family had to move to Canada. So they moved to Canada. They hook up with another old business partner of David's grandfather, and that's where this whole organized crime thing comes to. He grows up, he gets trained to be an assassin, and governments like the CIA, MI6, they all use him for doing hits that they can't really have their name attached to. So that's kind of where the books went. But yeah, it all started off with a concussion one night training, and now I've got two published books. I've got a third one that I'm editing right now, and a fourth one that I've done. I just got to kind of find the time to juggle between the third and fourth book. So, like I said, it could have been a lot worse. I know people that still suffer with crazy headaches and all that from concussions. And I still do suffer from a couple other things, but the blessing was this character that grew in my mind that I was able to put down to paper, and now I have two fairly successful books with them.
Well, I mean, that's an awesome story of turning what could be a tragedy into something of a great success.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it's it's one of those things. It could have went either way, and I'm just lucky it went this way.
Yeah. And whenever you say it's it could go either way, I kind of like broadening that out a little bit. A lot of people look at the times that we're in as being like really turbulent times. But whenever you start looking at history, it seems like that there are times before this that were actually much worse. And I think what makes now kind of so much more difficult is you don't know the outcome. And I mean, the great thing about history is you know how it turned out. So regardless of
Hmm.
how bad it was good. And there might be other people here that are watching this video and seeing your kind of recovery story and success story who might be feeling that there's no way to the future, because their future is uncertain. I was wondering if you had any bit of advice or something for those people kind of on that transition state.
I think like all of us, we've all been through something where you just got to put, your right foot in front of your left and just keep walking kind of thing. Um, yeah, I think we've all been through those dark times, and really the only advice you can give is just keep on walking, right? Just you'll get through it. There is a light at the I hate to use the old cliches and stuff like the light at the end of the tunnel, but yeah, I had some very dark days too, where like, you didn't know what was going on, crazy headaches, crazy ideas in your head and stuff, right? With the concussion. I've got friends that have dealt with depression and same thing, right? Like, I guess I hate to say it this way, but you have to help yourself. No one else will. You really do have to just keep putting one foot in front of the other and just keep walking through it and know, like you said, if you look through history, they have that doomsday clock and it's always sitting a couple seconds off. Throughout history, that doomsday clock is pretty much sat at the same time. And like you said, we can look back now and go, okay, well, you look at World War II, you look at, like just face it, there was probably people during the Industrial Revolution thinking, well, this is the end of the world kind of thing. This is the end of times. You go back right through history. I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones that have ever had conversations about end times or the end of the world or stuff like that, right? Because I think it's always just been there. I think that's just human nature to assume that because we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Um, so the only advice you can really take is you just got to just keep on walking and just know that tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow could be the day that breaks it for you, and you walk through that light and you're there kind of thing. Or you might have to go another week, but just keep on taking those steps because it will get there. Life is not meant to be miserable from birth to death kind of thing.
As you're saying that, I'm the song "Just Hold On for One More Day" is playing in the back of my mind.
Yeah, yeah, and really that's all it is, right? Like yeah, and some people just can't do that, and that's unfortunate. But yeah, like if you can, you put your head down on the pillow and you wake up the next morning and it's a new day, new attitude, and you just keep taking those steps, kind of thing forward. Um, but it's not easy. Let's be honest. It isn't easy, especially in these days and times. But you just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, one kind of unique period about our current time is we don't have those same physical and communicative barriers that people earlier used to have. I mean, we carry our phone with us, which allows for billions of people to interact with us, whether or not we want them to or not, and we feel somehow engaged in that. So, um,
Hmm.
back in the day of letters and telegraphs, and there's like a big barrier to actually communicating stuff. You're pretty much limited just to people physically around you. But
Yep. Like like I think about like so I was born in Northern Ireland, we moved to Canada, kind of like the character in my book and stuff, but I think about all my family over in Northern Ireland that I didn't know back then, right? Like I used to, like you said, I would write letters to my grandmother. You'd send it in the mail, and a month later, 6 weeks later, I get a letter back from her, kind of thing. Or there was my Uncle Davy, same kind of thing, right? We'd send letters back and forth. I do a lot of biking and stuff, and I think about when I was a kid, I get on my bike and just disappear. My parents didn't know where I was. They didn't know if I was on the hood of a truck heading down the highway kind of thing. Whereas now, um, with all the technology and stuff, I've got my bike computer, which will actually tell my wife if my bike's lying on its side for more than 30 seconds. You know what I mean? Or she can just every time I start a bike ride, I think I got about 4 or 5 friends plus family that all get alerts saying, "Hey, follow Steven." And like my one buddy, he loves it. If I'm out for like a big, like, 60, 70 mile bike ride or whatever, he loves just watching, on his computer and it shows where I am on the map. It gives my heart rate, it gives my cadence, my speed. Like he gets all that information, you know, real time. Whereas, like I said, back in the 80s, you would go on a bike ride and I used to get lost just around town and stuff because you go out in these country roads and you had nothing with you except for maybe you remember the big Walkmans and the foam headphones kind of thing, and that was it, right? No bike helmets or anything. Whereas now, like we're bubble wrapped everywhere we go, and like you said, a billion people can get hold of us, in the blink of an eye. Um, I was up north. I'm in Canada, so I'm in Ontario, Canada. So I was up north biking about 2 months ago and I was on this back logging road and there was no service, no nothing. It was just me out there. I didn't see a person I didn't see a vehicle for over an hour. And it was surreal, I guess is the best way to put it, right? Because where can you actually go anywhere these days with not and lose cell service? Have, like I said, I had my bike computer. My wife wouldn't have known if my bike was lying over at the side because there was no way of communicating. It was just me and the moose and the bears and and the wild animals, right? So it was a pretty cool feeling, but the first 5 minutes of it, it was a little bit of a shock to my system to sit there and think about no one knows where I am right now, right? Whereas your whole life, like, let's face it, I swear, even when your phone's off, there's, it's still listening to you.
I know. Whenever you get those targeted ads, and you're like, I never did any searches or do anything, and suddenly I'm getting ads about this thing that I was talking to my wife about. Um, I, Several things. One is a bike computer. That's a new term for me. Maybe you could enlighten me.
This is it here. It's just a small little thing. It keeps me updated. So it'll give me on my screen here. This is a little Wahoo. It's not turned on, but it gives me my speed. It gives me GPS. So I can actually program a bike ride into it and tells me when to turn. Just like your GPS in your car, it'll tell me when to turn right. It gives me a heart rate, average speed, calories burned. It gives you so much information. And then you wear a heart rate monitor on your chest, and it gives you all that stuff too. So you can make sure you're in your targeted training zones. Yeah, it's quite the thing, and then it uploads to my computer. I use Strava, which is a an app kind of thing. So it uploads, and then I got like 600 or 700 followers on that. That every time it uploads, they give you kudos or whatever. And so yeah, it's like I said, you can't go anywhere in the world without someone knowing where you are, right?
And you mentioned something else about how strange it was to be in this area of aloneness, disconnectedness. And, I've listened to the book Endurance about Shackleton's trip to the Antarctic. And, I've heard stories about sailors, in olden times and admirals kind of like having to, our captains having to act independently because they didn't have any communication back to a base. And I think about our trip to, like, say, Mars, for example. Uh, that's going to require the skill set that used to be quite common of being
Hmm.
able to be independent, operate independently, know, this self reliance that in today's world seems very rare. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? Like you think about right now, if I got a question, I just put it into Google and I get, a million pages of answers kind of thing. Like I said, when I was up north there was nowhere. If I had a flat tire, it's up to me. There was no calling someone to come pick me up. What if, like if something had happened, I was joking with my wife saying you would never have known if I was supper with a bear or whatever, right? Because there was just that not, and even like you think about it, when the astronauts and stuff went to the backside of the moon, there was that, what was it, 45 minutes or whatever of dead air when there was no communication with the Earth. And that would be the same thing with going to Mars and stuff. There would be those times where there'd be no, well, what is it? Isn't it like a 14-minute, there's a delay or whatever, right? Anyway, so even if you're dealing with something, by the time by the time you send it back to the Earth, and then they send you back, you've already had to have dealt with it. You can't wait for that. It's not instantaneous like we get here. So yeah, so you need to have that common sense. You need to know that you need to have that, like you said, it's just a skill that's gone now where people, you have to be able to think for yourself. You have to be able to think on your toes kind of thing, right? And it seems like people have lost that ability to do that these days because everything, like you said, you've got a phone there, you don't have to think for yourself anymore. That'll do it for you, right? So yeah, where these people going up to Mars, they're going to have to be able to think on their feet. They're going to have to be able to, like the Apollo 13, they're going to have to be able to put that round filter in that square box kind of thing to make it work. Or, for me, I might have had to walk back a couple of kilometers back to cell service. They don't have that option. It's life and death up there, right?
Yeah, and they need to be able to put that round filter in the square hole, or the square filter in the round hole
Yeah.
with engineering support staff that they had here. That's a kind of a different
Hmm.
situation.
Yeah. So like and not, let's face it, that's not a skill you can teach either. You either have it or you don't. And I was born in the 70s, so I think more people back then might have it now than than people, last more in the last 20, 25 years kind of thing, because let's face it, we were the last generation growing up without that kind of technology. We had to get up to turn our TV over instead of just using a remote. So yeah, so it does. I think it is something that is going to be that's going to be a skill that will be needed, because there's unfortunately I don't see how you can make a trip to Mars without having some kind of hiccup and glitch with all that
Absolutely.
technology that's going to be in it, right? Like there's going to be something that's going to be a bit of a hiccup.
Yeah. Um, Definitely. And, I also think, those Apollo 8 astronauts, the first humans to actually be beyond low Earth orbit. Uh, One of the things about the trip that really stands out for me is they were so excited to see not the moon, but the Earth from the vicinity of the moon.
Hmm.
And these people that go to Mars, they're going to see something even more spectacular. They're going to see the Earth disappear. And I just wonder how people can cope with that.
Yeah, like you said, like going to the moon, there's still that big blue ball kind of thing looking back at you. Going to Mars, I don't know. I like, unless you got like a telescope or something, you're not really getting a good image of Mars. So yeah, so now you're definitely saying goodbye to the planet. Now you're definitely saying goodbye to everything you've grown up knowing, right? So yeah, I think psychologically there's, like let's face it, these people are gonna have to be fit. They're gonna have to be, you know, top of their group kind of thing. But I still think going back to like even with my concussion and stuff, dealing with that mental stress that you have, people that deal with depression and stuff, like I think that's what there's got to be a little bit of that with these people, right? You're not building robots. We're not sending robots. We're sending humans, and there's emotions involved. There stuff like that, right? And when yeah, as that blue ball is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, there's got to be some emotion involved there that could interfere with that reasonable thinking and stuff as well, right?
Absolutely. And just being surrounded by blackness, I mean, I think they will be um, very lonely and isolated. So, uh,
Yeah, like I said, I don't mind a little bit of that for even for a day or two, but I don't know if I could do I don't know if I could step on this, like I don't know if I could get on my bike and say, okay, I'm never gonna, that's it, I'm gone, right? There'd be no more communication with civilization kind of thing, right? Or touch kind of thing, obviously there'd be communication, but like you're walking away from everything at that point.
absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask you about the moon. First off, did you know that NASA is planning to send astronauts back to the moon?
I did, and that's kind of where I got hooked up with you when I for some reason this popped up. I thought, oh, I want to be on that. I want to talk to him about that. Yeah, so it is kind of cool. So they're like talking about what 2 years from now they're hoping to get things up and rolling, right? Like the first group should be going up, but I don't believe they're actually landing on the moon. They're just doing kind of like what I guess kind of like what we did in the 60s, right? They're going to be doing some testing and stuff before they actually put people back on the moon. It's kind of unfortunate. Like if you think about it, it's kind of unfortunate that we're talking. Like I'm not sure how old you are, but I wasn't born when they did the, like when Armstrong kind of stepped on the moon and stuff. And you're thinking like I'm 50 and we've taken a step back in technology, right? Like there's two things that I've always thought about, like when it comes to air flight and space travel. The day they grounded the Concorde, I feel like that was one of the biggest steps of, backwards that we've ever taken, like with air flight, right? Everything's been forward, forward, forward. And then we grounded those Concords. It's like, well, now we're flying around 747s again, where you would think that we should have been moving forward. And then obviously, the last flight to the moon, we've never went back. And, the space shuttle thing was kind of cool, but that's not like outer orbit. That's just, we're just kind of, you know, you're still within the gravity, in a way of the earth and stuff, as compared to going to the moon and actually breaking through and getting out into space, right? So two big step backs I've always thought about is like, why did we give up on that dream of getting, doing more on the moon? So it is kind of exciting, and I don't know, hopefully this time it actually sticks. It's obviously very expensive. So but it's one of those things where hopefully this time we actually do more than just, shoot a couple golf balls and things like that on the moon.
Um, did you know that the rocket that they're planning to send people to the moon, um, and the capsule is actually they have a test version of it on the launch pad right now that's going to launch on August 29th.
No, I didn't. That's interesting. I have to look that up.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
the Artemis 1 mission. So it's just a test flight, but it's testing out the same system that should take 4 astronauts in 2024, and might interest you, including the first Canadian to ever go around the moon.
Oh, well, that's cool. So is this a manned one in August?
No, this is uncrewed,
Okay.
but this, if everything goes well here, it has set us up for the 2024 flight, which will include 4 crew members.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize they were that close to the testing for the testing and stuff. So I'll have to definitely keep an eye out in the news for that then.
Yep, it'll be Monday, August 29th morning. So we have a launch party all set up. And if for some reason they missed that date, then they have 2 backup dates the following weekend. Um, so
Where are they launching from?
from Florida,
Oh, cool.
Kennedy
Because I'll
Space
actually be
Center.
in South Carolina, so I don't know if I'll be close enough. I might actually.
I don't
Huh.
know.
Yeah, right. Because it kind of the way if they kind of take that trajectory that they usually do out over the ocean, I might actually see the tailings or something of it at that height. So that's kind of cool. I'll be up early for that then.
Absolutely. It's 8:30 Eastern time is the flight. So um, it should be good. Um, well, what do you think? So you're also excited about us going back to the moon, and I guess I'm curious, and where do you see humanity going? Like, if you were to project out 200 years, do you think we're still only on the Earth, or do you think we've actually spread out around the solar system?
I would hope that we've done more. There's two things I'd really like to see. I think we really need to be heading to space, and I really think we need to be looking at the oceans too. I think there's like we haven't even, cracked the surface of that really either, right? So I would hope in 200 years we would be both ways, deep in the ocean and high in the sky kind of thing. I think I would think at by 200 years we will be past Mars. We should be looking further out. Um, but then again, I've always been a Star Trek, Star Wars, sci-fi kind of fan, right? So you kind of hope for that stuff. Um, I don't know if it's actually possible. Like when you actually read some of the stuff about how like the human body, like let's face it, like they talk about if even if when we get to Mars and they start colonizing it and stuff, I've read where they say like a baby that was born in Mars could never come to Earth because of gravity and other things like that too, right? So it's one of those things. Our human bodies are only built for kind of being on Earth, right? So it's going to take like you think about the people that even are heading to Mars, like even like when you read about like the astronauts and stuff, like when they went to the moon, or even when they're up in like the ISS for a period of time, what it does to their body, right? So I would hope within 2 years the medical community would be on board too, where we would be able to do who knows, it could be like a hybrid of a AI kind of slash human body, right? Because that seems to be where we're heading if you listen to Elon Musk and stuff. So who knows, right? But it would be good to know that, yeah, like our great grandkids kind of thing might be leaving the solar system in 200 years, maybe 300 years kind of thing. Um, but it's so far away too. Who knows? With all like once again going back to what we started with all the crap going on in the world right now, you know, kind of hope for 20 years, right? So, yeah, if we can kind of get our stuff together nowadays and get 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 through some of this, like the wars, the fighting and all that, and actually start looking at humanity as a whole. um I believe it was Ronald Reagan that said, like, if like with all the fighting and stuff going on, right, if an alien was to land in the front of the White House, we would all of a sudden all be earthlings and all be one kind of thing to battle against it or whatever. So you got to, I think that's the problem. We still look at us Canadian, American, Russian, Ukraine or whatever. We need to look at us as humans and as Earthlings more or less, before I really think we can make that effort to start really going deep into the solar system.
And that kind of brings up another topic. Do you think countries maybe have outlived their usefulness? I mean, used to people were very geographically oriented, but now because of the internet and the way people can communicate all around the world and move around, uh, being geographically fixed in one place is not happening. And countries are very much a geographic thing. And they're creating arbitrary divisions between peoples. Um, any thoughts?
A good example is the last 2 years with COVID, right? So I wasn't allowed as a Canadian, I wasn't allowed to go to the States, kind of thing. Americans weren't allowed to come up here, but yet I could drive my car to Niagara Falls and bike along a trail which is right across, the border. So I was actually closer to the American border than I was to my own house, but yet I couldn't go across that bridge to Buffalo, kind of thing, right? And you're sitting there going, this is so stupid. You can't tell me those people in Buffalo are any different than I am here in Niagara Falls right now, um, with COVID and all that, but yet the borders were shut down around the world. So yeah, I feel like the whole man-made borders around the world, that seems to be, yeah, it's definitely outlived its time, I would say. I think we're at the point now where that it just doesn't, like you said, it just doesn't work anymore, right? Like even yeah, even some of the stuff, like it's so funny, like TV shows and stuff up in Canada, right? There's certain things we don't get from the States because of intellectual rights or whatever across the border. It just all needs to go. But yeah, I would say the majority of people over the last 2 years, seeing how borders were just so easily closed down, and like even in Europe and stuff, like we're like, or like even the state, like even in Canada, we've traveled out east, and like where I live down here in southern Ontario, there's pretty much a water border between the states and Canada, right? Like it's bridges, whether it's Detroit, Buffalo, or whatever. But you go out east or you go out west, and it's literally land. Like there's this one there's trees, and then there's like 200 feet or whatever of open space, and that's the border, kind of thing. It's ridiculous. You can walk across, but yet I still have to have that piece of paper saying I'm Canadian citizen, and for me to go, I have to prove all that. Yeah, I think I truly do believe we're past the border thing at this point.
Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting to see what would take its place and what the transition would look like.
Hmm. I don't think it would ever happen because those governments enjoy their power.
And it's true, and regardless of why an organization was set up, its primary number one objective becomes survival.
Yep.
Every organization seeks to survive.
Yep. Right.
If you could, would you take a trip to space?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've always told my wife the only way I would ever leave her is if an alien ship landed in my backyard and asked me to come on board, kind of thing. Oh yeah, if I could get on something to space, I would be gone.
How far would you consider going? I mean, if immigrating to Mars was a possibility and being one of those first million citizens.
I I would be open for something like that even. Yeah. Yeah. I think it'd just be cool to, like the first astronaut, like you said, like we were talking about, the first astronaut, it'd be cool to see the Earth from up there. And you don't get to say, obviously it's not the same effect as being up in a plane at 32,000 feet or whatever. But yeah, to see that whole thing just with that black backdrop would be amazing.
So imagine you do immigrate to Mars, and it's 200 years in the future, and it's your great, 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 great. I'm not sure how many greats it takes to get this. Um, Granddaughter is on Mars, lived on Mars her entire life. She's in high school, and just like high schoolers here are in history class, she's in history class doing a project on the 2020s. So, what, what do you hope is worth? Well, what do you think will be worth remembering about this decade, 200 years from now?
Well, let's face it, the first 2 years have been brutal. I think we would all like to forget them. Unfortunately, those will be the ones, just like, let's face it, a lot of stuff happened in the 30s and 40s, but all people talk about is World War II, right? So I think, let's face it, COVID, and who knows what the future in the 20s will bring, but I would hope that maybe, I like, I don't think we're far enough into into those 20s to actually think about what, if we were talking about the the teens, like the difference there would be if you think about the leap that we took in technology, because if you think about 2010, we didn't, I believe the iPhone was just starting to come out, right? So you look in the last 10 years from 2010 to 2020, the amount of technology that has been put into the palm of our hand, kind of thing. I think that would be a big thing. And I do believe between 2020 and 2030, that might be the talking point as well, is what technology has done, um, for us as humans, but also for the world, and quite possibly for space travel and stuff too, because, you know, fingers crossed that in 2024 everything goes well and it progresses, right? And by the 30, by 2030 or whatever, there's a little bit more, like I said, a little bit more on the moon than just guys shooting golf balls and planting flags, kind of thing. And unfortunately, not a knock against the states or anything, but like, we can't be planting another American flag up there. It's got to be an international, you know. I don't think we want to do to the moon what we've done to Earth, where we start putting borders up and say, okay, we'll take the southern hemisphere, you guys can have this area. That crater over there, that belongs to China, kind of thing. I think it, like, let's face it, if we're going to do this, we can't be going up as countries. We got to be going up as humans, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Back during the Apollo program, it was pretty much 100% American effort, but yet the words around it was for all mankind, and that it was really an emphasis. I mean, I know it was American flag, but I think the words were right. But this is like an international effort. We're
Mhm.
building a space station around the moon. Canada is contributing a robotic arm, and some people say that the cost of that seat on that Artemis 2 mission was an arm and a leg minus the leg.
Yeah, quite possible, right? If you think about it, like we as Canadians, we have, like, even with the space shuttle stuff, we have, you know, been quite involved in all that. With the like, even, in the space shuttle, the arm was a Canadian made arm. A lot of that technology and stuff, like, was worked on, you know, together, kind of thing. So that's the one nice thing about, Canada and the States. There is that border there, but you know what? Living here, going on vacation in the South, there's not much difference between us, right? And you can see that with how much stuff crosses over the borders daily, right? Like, we both need each other, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Stephen, I really appreciate your time. I didn't want to take up all your morning, um, but I know we covered a lot of stuff. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
No, no, I think this is pretty cool. Like I said, I was looking forward to this kind of all week, and yeah, it's been nice to talk with you and stuff. Appreciate taking the time.
Absolutely. And I'm interviewing a person to the end of 2024, which, and so if you know anybody else that would be willing to have a conversation, uh, that
Certainly,
send them
I
my
know a
way.
bunch of authors, so and everyone likes to promote their books. So yeah, I'll definitely let them know.
That would be awesome. I would really appreciate that. And if you ever make it down to Houston, I hope you reach out.
Sure, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye.